Jim Harbaugh has accepted the 3-game suspension, meaning he will not be on the sideline for Maryland or Ohio State. Ohio State, obviously a pretty big game in that sense, probably going to be for a college football playoff spot. Already sat out this past weekend against Penn State. So where are we now? What does this mean for Michigan, for Jim Harbaugh, for the situation as a whole? We'll talk about it right now, but first things first. Michigan faithful, y'all been good to us now. You've been subscribed to the channel. If you have not yet subscribed, would encourage you to be a part of this. We'd love to have you all a part of this. We're going to keep you dialed in for all things college football, for all things college football playoff, all things week to week in college football. Just want y'all dialed in. So with that being said, from where I'm standing, and Andy Staples has a great video on this topic as well, so make sure you check that out on this channel. This is Michigan saying, uncle, like, hey, we've kind of seen this thing play out to a degree. Sounds like maybe there is more under the surface here that we don't really want to go all the way down the line with. Let's just call it what it is. We'll take that suspension, clean our hands, walk away, investigation closed. Okay, so in some sense, you're like, great. It's done with now. We can all move on. That's how I feel a little bit as a fan of college football, period. Like, that's kind of where I'm standing. But I will say this. I am not a fan. I'm not a fan of the way this happened. I'm not a fan of the way this happened because it felt like the whole conversation around suspending Jim Harbaugh this season really caught traction after that Zoom conference with Big Ten coaches and the Big Ten, because prior to that, there wasn't really quite as much buzz, at least. We didn't hear as much buzz, at least, around Jim Harbaugh having the hammer laid down this season. And the reason why I'm not a fan of that, I understand you want to see action, you want to see something done, but the precedent this sets is, okay, well, if I'm angry enough and I get other people in this circle angry enough, and we go to Tony Petitti and we say, hey, we want something done, we can get something done. So I understand that's the situation. Something got done, something happened. Is that the precedent now we're setting for all future issues within the Big Ten? If we have an angry mob, we can get something done, we can kind of have our way. I don't love the way that looks now going forward. That feels a little bit weird to me. So here's what I would also say. I don't think this is the worst case scenario for Michigan. Like, the best case scenario, obviously, would have been, hey, whole thing just gets thrown out altogether, gets dismissed, Jim Harbaugh's on the sideline for Maryland and Ohio State. That would have been the best case scenario. Now, the worst case scenario would have been if this thing hangs over your head and Jim Harbaugh's on the sideline one weekend, then he's not the next, and it hangs over your head all the way through the Big Ten championship, if you make it there, all the way to the college football playoff, if you make it there, and it's just this uncomfortable elephant in the room of, are they eventually going to one day get popped? Is that going to be something where one day we're getting ready for practice of our college football playoff game and we find out Jim Harbaugh is X, Y, and Z punishment? That would have been the worst case scenario. That would have been a distractor. That would have taken away from the ultimate goal of this Michigan football team, which is to win a national title. And it starts this weekend with Maryland. It'll be the next weekend with Ohio State, week by week. Like, if it's taken away at all from what's happening on the field, that would have been the worst case scenario. As odd as it sounds, I think this is kind of somewhere in the middle. Because now you can have focus and clarity and direction for what's ahead for Michigan. Those guys in that locker room now know, okay, this is a bummer. We're not excited about the result that we got here. We disagree with it. But at the end of the day, we got to be adults about this. Our head coach is not on the sideline for these next 2 games. Make it to the Big Ten championship, he'll be back. So it's on this locker room now and the leadership in this locker room to handle business and to be mature about it, which is a difficult thing in this situation, obviously, with how unorthodox it is. But I would say I think the leadership in this locker room should provide some confidence for those that are rooting for Michigan in this space. You have top 5 returning production in the country, a lot of guys that have played in some big spots, a lot of guys that have been under Jim Harbaugh for a long period of time and understand now, I think, what he would want going forward. So the leadership in that locker room, yeah, it's a bummer you don't have Jim Harbaugh. Yeah, it's probably even providing a little edge for you, give you a little motivation. But with all that being said, I think you feel pretty confident about the direction and the leadership and the structure of what's going on internally at Michigan. So you would imagine it'll be Sherrone Moore going forward is my guess. I don't know that to be 100% true. That would be my guess based on what happened this past weekend with him leading the show against Penn State. I can't wait to watch how they respond, because this story in itself just continues to add new layers every single week. You'd imagine there will be another layer to this thing at some point in time and in the following weeks. I have no idea, but regardless, whenever that Netflix or HBO documentary comes out about it. I'm sure it'll be well worth our time to watch. So again, Jim Harbaugh has accepted the suspension, will not be on the field for Maryland or Penn State, or Penn State, wasn't on the field for Penn State or Ohio State. When it comes to the Big Ten championship game, if they get there, he will be on the sideline and beyond. That Ohio State game now has some extra juice, especially for Ryan Day. Can you imagine if Jim Harbaugh's not on the sideline and Ryan Day and Ohio State lose to Michigan again? Things would get loud in Columbus, to say the least. Make sure you're subscribed. Let me know what you think of the situation on social media at JD PicKell, Twitter, Instagram. I want to hear from y'all. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.